Welcome in to the Stampede. My name is Ryan Jones, along with my good friend Ashton Yanas. Ashton, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I am doing great. It's been a while since we've recorded, but since then, some big news in the NFL has come along. The 49ers have traded to the number 3 overall pick. Dolphins trade down to 12. They move back up to 6. And the Eagles have moved down to the 12th pick. And as you could see by the graphic on the screen, those are the major moves in this trade. We're also going to be talking about Sam Darnold getting traded to the Carolina Panthers. But first, let's start off with this. So, a lot to unpack here. I want to go in order of the draft pick. So, first off, the 49ers acquiring the 3rd overall pick in the draft. I think the biggest loser here is Jimmy Garoppolo, unless the 49ers decide to be dumb and take Mac Jones.
Yeah, if you're Jimmy Garoppolo, you know that you got to step up this season if you plan on still being a long-term starter, whether it's with the 49ers or with any other franchise in the National Football League. There's a lot of solid quarterbacks that are in this draft class, and it's kind of interesting to see what the Niners do with that 3rd pick because everyone right now just assumes that they're going to get Justin Fields. There's a lot of talks about maybe Mac Jones, but to me, that's kind of a reach. To me, that's just as risky as the Bears getting Mitchell Trubisky, in my opinion. So it's kind of a mess in regards to what quarterback's actually going to be in the quarterback room with Jimmy Garoppolo. But either way, this is definitely a worst case scenario situation for Jimmy G.
Yeah, and let's talk about this from the 49ers perspective. I mean, there's lots of reports coming out. Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, a lot of other outside sources saying the 49ers plan to take Mac Jones over Justin Fields or Trey Lance. To me, this would be a huge waste of a pick. You could get Mac Jones at pick number 12, I believe, and you wouldn't even have to make this move. Like, realistically, there's no way that they actually take Mac Jones ahead of Justin Fields or Trey Lance. Whichever one they decide to pick out of those two, I believe will be a successful NFL quarterback because I believe that Kyle Shanahan is one of, if not the best coach in the NFL, and the 49ers are one of, if not the best organization in the NFL, period, just the way they are run top to bottom. If they don't take Justin Fields or Trey Lance over Mac Jones, both of those players have better arms. They're better in college, period. You can make the level of competition argument, but I would argue that Trey Lance's job at North Dakota State was harder, in fact, than Mac Jones's job throwing screens to Devontae Smith every play. And Mac Jones couldn't even beat out Tua last year. And Tua does not look like a starting NFL quarterback. Like, Tua didn't play well last year. So it's just insane to me. And by the way, I don't want to slander any people or anything like that, but Mac Jones has 2 DUIs. Why is Mac Jones not getting the Baker Mayfield treatment? Baker was above the age of drinking or whatever. He was 21 plus years old, and he goes out to a bar and he has a little much to drink, which is perfectly legal. Mac Jones does something illegal twice, and people freak out about the Baker police video. But Mac Jones, where's this energy for Mac Jones? I don't care if he's a Nick Saban guy. There's been plenty of bad people and bad football players come out of high prestige programs. Now, and also, I'm not saying that Mac Jones is like some terrible person or whatever, but 2 DUIs is something that we should be discussing. And Jalen Hurts, you've heard nothing. There's nothing, or not Jalen Hurts, excuse me, Justin Fields, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. You've heard nothing but great things about them. And even last week when we heard the reports, Justin Fields doesn't have good work ethic. People debunk that in like 5 seconds. So if the 49ers take Mac Jones over Justin Fields or Trey Lance, I believe it would be a huge, huge mistake.
Yeah, I totally agree, Ryan. And I think if any team that goes from being outside top 10 in draft picks and trading up all the way to top 5 in the NFL draft, that means you already found that special type of quarterback who has so many tangibles, who's so versatile that not only fits in your scheme, but he can make any adjustments and any crazy outside the box plays if something were to explode off the line of scrimmage, or even if the play you call doesn't work out. I think if you're trying to find that kind of quarterback who can be your face of the franchise for the next 10 years, you're looking at it again, either Justin Fields or Trey Lance, because those are the two guys that really have a lot of skill, size, athleticism, great arm talent. I know the big questions there was just that Justin Fields doesn't always make the right decisions, but at the same time, I've watched some of his film, especially against Clemson in the Sugar Bowl, and there were times where even when he made the wrong read, he was still making a great throw. And I think that's what's great about a guy like Justin Fields, that he has so much upside that even when he makes those mental errors that basically every quarterback makes at least twice in an NFL game, he can still score those touchdowns. He's one of those guys. And then Trey Lance, I know the big thing there is that he only throw the ball like less than 20 times every game. But you look at his athleticism, you look at his talent, you look at how much production he created for that North Dakota State offense, which, yes, they're technically in the FCS level, which is like Division 1.5, but he really plays like a Division 1 superstar. And I really think if you put him onto a team, especially like the 49ers, and if you have to sit with Jimmy G for a year, that's fine, because all of a sudden you start getting into a rhythm. You have all this great NFL talent around you. You have the best fullback in the league. You have arguably one of the best tight ends in the league. You have these receivers that are easily put into different type of schemes and systems that can adjust and come back to the ball if they have to. Kyle Shanahan's one of the best offensive-minded coaches in the NFL, and the roster all around is perfect. The reason why the Niners are going up is because they're going to get special quarterback talent that makes them feel complete, especially in a division where all the other three teams look more complete than them.
Like, you are not going to draft Mac Jones and compete with Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson, and
Kyler Murray.
And Kyler Murray, yeah. So, like, it just doesn't make... And also, you are not moving off of Jimmy Garoppolo to draft someone whose ceiling is Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right. And again, the NFC West is so competitive now that the Niners just have to attack and get the best quarterback available. And they're not going to get Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson. Zach Wilson out of BYU, who's more than likely going to the Jets, though with New York, anything's a toss-up. So the Niners, you're going with either Justin Fields or Trey Lance because they both have such good tangibles. They're so athletic. They really have the next best thing to superstar talent. And really under Kyle Shanahan's system, any of these two guys can really become similar play styles of Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. They can become those guys if they spend the time and effort in developing and all that good stuff, which, again, Kyle Shanahan's the perfect coach for that. I don't think you trade up to get Mac Jones. I like Mac Jones. I do think he's a good quarterback. But, again, playing under a system where you have NFL Pro Bowlers on your roster day in and day out, knowing that you can make any throw in the world because every receiver you have is a go-getter, jump ball guy who's all going to be drafted somewhere in the top 20 in the picks. I mean, we already discussed how 3 of his teammates are basically going to be drafted in the first round as well. If there's any Alabama player that has to get drafted last out of the 4 or 5 guys we talked about coming out of that program this year, it's got to be Mac Jones, because he's just someone that can really fit into a right system. You're not trading up again from 12 to 3rd to the guy that fits in your system. You're trying to find a guy who can work in all systems, who can dominate on the field no matter what coach and scheme you have.
And the bottom line is, every single quarterback in the NFL fits the Kyle Shanahan system because it is the best offensive system in the National Football League. Right. You want to know the quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls in this system and who have had the most success in this system? Special quarterbacks. John Elway won a Super Bowl or multiple Super Bowls in this system. Robert Griffin III had one of the best rookie seasons we have ever seen in this system when he played for Washington, before the injury and all that stuff. You have to get a special talent. And I'm not comparing Elway to RG3, but we can both look back and say that rookie season from RG3 was special. And before injuries, RG3 was a special quarterback. So you have to get special. You should not settle for mediocrity. And to me, if you draft Mac Jones at number 3 overall, that would be mediocre.
All right. And Sorry, real quick. Another quarterback to add to that list of guys who did well under that system was Matt Ryan. When Kyle Shanahan was coaching the Falcons, that was a really good Atlanta Falcon team. And yeah, they had a really good run game, but at the same time, everything just started clicking. Matt Ryan looked, that was an MVP type of year he had, and just everything clicked. So the Niners, they really have a chance to easily create some type of offensive scheme that's going to be dominant if they can just get the quarterback right, which again is either going to be Justin Fields or Trey Lance.
All right, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins now, trading down to 12 with the 49ers and then swapping picks with the Eagles, acquiring a little more draft capital in there. So what happens is the Eagles go down to 12, the Dolphins go up to 6th. Lots of movement here in the first round. Tua Tagovailoa is the ultimate winner of this huge trade because now the Dolphins are not in position to take a quarterback. If they end up taking a quarterback, the only one that's going to be available at 6, in my opinion, is probably going to be Mac Jones. And Tua, let's be real here, he's probably a better quarterback than Mac Jones. And Tua ultimately gets this year to prove that he is a franchise quarterback. The Dolphins aren't going to be in position, like I said. Trading to number 6 means they could take Penei Sewell, they could take Jamar Chase, they could take Kyle Pitts, they could take whichever one of those players they prefer, because those are really the 3 blue chip prospects that we all expect to be great in the NFL. In my opinion, I think you should go the offensive line route and get him an elite left or right tackle in Penei Sewell, because you already went out and got Will Fuller. You have Mike Gesicki. You have Devontae Parker. All of these help Tua, but ultimately I think Tua is the biggest winner coming out of this whole entire trade.
Yeah, I agree. And if you're Tua, you have to be happy knowing that your franchise was willing to trade down. Now, granted, they only traded down 3 spots, but that's just because now they're looking for that ideal player that's going to make Tua's life a lot easier. Rather it's Penei Sewell to protect him on the offensive line, rather it's getting him an SEC wide receiver, rather it's Jamar Chase out of LSU or Waddle or Smith, any receiver that is going to be projected somewhere in the top 16 draft picks. Either way, it's going to be somebody that's going to make Tua's life easier. Ideally, you would probably want someone who's the best of both worlds and maybe hope that Kyle Pitts drops, but it's so tempting that Kyle Pitts could land either 4th or 5th because he's just such a superstar talent. But yeah, if you're Tua, this is just perfect for you because you're either getting some form of protection or some form of weapon in the perimeter that's just going to make your life so much easier. I really think Tua is a guy who can progress and become a face of the franchise type of talent. He just has to prove it, and he just needs the right amount of talent around him. But he already has a good coach. He already has a solid defense. This is whoever gets drafted here at 6 for the Dolphins is someone that's going to force Tua to prove himself to be that next guy for Miami.
Oh, it's going to be an offensive player easily, hands down. Either a lineman, you could even throw Rashawn Slater into that group, I think, just because there are some that believe he is the top tackle in this class. Either way, this is it. This is the make or break year for Tua. And if he does not come out and show that he's a franchise level type of quarterback, I think the Dolphins could be in position next year to move on from him, whether that's draft or free agency. If Tua plays well enough, the Dolphins should be in the playoff picture, and they won't have a chance at taking one of the top quarterbacks coming out next year. So, honestly, we were talking about it. A lot of people were saying this is a make or break year for Baker Mayfield. Baker made the playoffs. Browns are not in a position to take a quarterback. Very similar situation here. Unless you have anything else to add, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the Eagles.
No, go ahead and move on to the Eagles. Happy for Tua because I really think he's a player that still has a chance to prove himself to be a top player.
Now, the Eagles at pick 12 is probably the most interesting thing here. Lots of Eagle fans upset on Twitter and whatnot that they're going to probably miss out on one of the blue chip prospects up at the top. They acquire some extra draft capital for moving down from 6 to 12. And I think the real winner here is Jalen Hurts, who, now the Eagles are no longer, we didn't think they were going to take a quarterback anyways, but there was still that possibility being as they might have been in position to take one. There is no longer that possibility here unless Mac Jones somehow falls to them. And even then, Mac Jones is not a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. So, Hurts even kept Mac Jones off the field when he played at Alabama. So, there's still other options for the Eagles here. They could take a Jalen Waddle. They could take a Devontae Smith if he's there. J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain could be available. Those are their 2 biggest needs, wide receiver and corner. And there's going to be good players at number 12, they could just go best player available. Maybe Micah Parsons is there, which all signs point to him being there because he has fallen a little bit, but regardless, they could just take best player available and they'll be fine. I think what you have to do here is get Jalen Hurts some weapons.
Well, as somewhat decent news as it is for Jalen Hurts, knowing that he'll more likely be QB1 for at least next year, the biggest winner for the Eagles is the new head coach, because really for him, it's just about getting more players, getting as many new players as possible to get them under the system you want. But also, if you're thinking long game and you know that you're not going to be winning your division, let alone, this conference, the NFC, because of how stacked the NFC West is and how Tampa Bay is going to be Tampa Bay all over again, you're really expecting all those picks that you've acquired from the Dolphins and the Niners to actually be worth more by the time the following draft starts. So if you're the Eagles, you're really just playing the long haul, hoping all your draft picks kind of pile up and get more valuable in stock basically as the following drafts come in. And if you're Jalen Hurts, yeah, it's good news to know that there's not going to be a competitive quarterback room, I guess. But at the same time, he really has to lift a lot of weight on his shoulders, because regardless of who they get at 12th, there's really so many holes on the roster of the Eagles to where either way, Jalen Hurts is going to have to do so much. I mean, it's going to be similar to letting Russ cook or letting Deshaun Watson cook with, only 3 or 4 other good teammates in your whole locker room.
Now let's move on to another big trade that did happen as a result of the 49ers trading up to the 3rd pick. Sam Darnold has been traded to the Carolina Panthers in a desperate attempt to fix their need at quarterback. The Jets receive a 6th-round pick this year, a 2nd and a 4th next year in the 2022 NFL Draft. I view this as a very desperate move by the Carolina Panthers. Once the 49ers traded up to the 3rd pick, the Panthers no longer have an option at quarterback in this draft unless they believe Mac Jones is their guy. Mac Jones should be there with their number 8 overall pick. I don't view Mac Jones as a huge upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater. I don't believe Sam Darnold's a huge upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater. Yes, he's more athletic. Yes, he has a stronger arm, but he's not as accurate as Teddy. He has not had the success Teddy Bridgewater has had in the NFL. Granted, he has played for the New York Jets, and Teddy played for the Saints when he had a lot of success, and the Vikings, 2 of the best franchises in the NFL. But in my opinion, the best quarterbacks, I've said it before on this podcast, the best franchise quarterbacks can overcome adversity and overcome the hard situations that they are put in. That's why they're drafted high. Other quarterbacks were able to overcome crappy situations. The Bills, you didn't think of them as a good, high-quality franchise in the NFL before Josh Allen got there and overcame adversity. The same thing with Baker Mayfield. Those two, and the Ravens were a high-quality organization. But there's 3 quarterbacks from that class who have been great and overcame the adversity that they were faced with. Sam Darnold has not. I think this is a desperate move by Carolina. Will he have success in Carolina? I'm sure he will, because Joe Brady is a great offensive coordinator and Matt Rule is a great head coach. And the Carolina Panthers, they're just run great top to bottom with their owner. But I think they're just desperate. They needed a quarterback. They're not going to move the needle with Teddy, so they're just throwing darts at right now. That's what I view this trade as.
Yeah, Carolina is interesting because we've seen many reports about how aggressive they've been this past offseason in regards to other free agents, in regards to trades with other teams. They were one of the franchises that was after Matthew Stafford. But Detroit just asked a lot out of them, and other teams just asked a lot out of Carolina. Carolina, they don't have the budget to get a star quarterback right now. And because they had a mediocre record, as rich as this draft class was in quarterbacks, they're no longer in position to get someone that's going to be, talented for the next 10 years and be the face of the franchise for them. So they had to settle with Sam Darnold, but he is a guy that I do think is talented. I do think the mechanics as a quarterback, you're going to get much better out of Sam Darnold compared to Teddy Bridgewater. I know the upgrade doesn't look that huge, especially if you're a team that's just trying to find the next franchise quarterback. But Sam Darnold is one of those guys that you can build around. And unfortunately, the Jets, they never took advantage of that. It's like the Houston Texans, they've been just making poor decision after poor decision, never really getting the right guys to build around Sam Darnold, never protected him. It was always a mess there in New York. But so for him, and again, you're Sam Darnold, now you have a better head coach. You have better weapons. I mean, you have Robbie Anderson and you have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. Offensive line's a little bit better, not by that much, but it's something that can get better, and it's already better than the New York Jets. So again, just everything's better in Carolina. Not that much better, but a lot better. So for Sam Darnold and the Carolina Panthers, they both have mutual benefits of just having a better quarterback, being on a better team. Jets get a few more draft picks, and though they won't really exploit those picks until the following draft because they're only going to use the 6th rounder out of Carolina in this year's draft, and then they'll use the 2nd and 4th round pick in the following draft. But really, the winner here is just Sam Darnold because, again, he gets a better coach, better weapons, better team that's around him, and he knows that this team is not in position to replace him anytime soon, at least for another 2 years, unless Carolina just totally dips, which I don't think.
Well, they have a shot to end up being one of these top teams in the NFL draft. The defense is very young. If things kind of roll the way that, not the way they want, but if teams do beat them this season and they end up having a top 3, top 5 pick, then you have the ability to move on from Sam Darnold. Let's talk about the other quarterback that they are probably going to move on from, which is Teddy Bridgewater. There's reported that teams are interested in Teddy Bridgewater. I don't know what teams those are. Those have not been reported. I would imagine the Denver Broncos are interested. Other teams that I can think are interested, probably the Patriots and the Saints. Maybe he goes back to the Saints and has like a reunion there. He played very well when he was there with the Saints, so that's a possibility. Patriots, maybe they're not happy with Cam Newton. It's just hard to find a trade partner for Teddy Bridgewater because I think at this point in his career, he's probably a backup quarterback.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater is one of those guys who had a great comeback story coming off his injury with the Vikings. I was definitely rooting for the guy. Wished him all but nothing but the best for him. Unfortunately, things just didn't work out with him in Carolina, and I think we're going to eventually see him move on to a different organization. And I think he's one of those guys who can be a really solid backup and maybe possibly go back to being a starter for another organization, in his final couple or 3 years in his NFL journey. But he really is a solid guy, and I really, another team that I kind of want to add on to this list is the Dallas Cowboys. We really saw how Andy Dalton moved on and went to Chicago to become the starter there. I really think if you have Dak Prescott, who's now worth $40 million a year, and this is a guy who's just coming off a serious injury, you want to make sure that you at least get the backup quarterback right in case something were to happen to Dak Prescott again. So Teddy Bridgewater would really fit there for the Dallas Cowboys, a pretty simple system behind Mike McCarthy's offensive scheme and all that good stuff. Patriots be another good one. It just depends on what New England does with their picks now that they actually do have some draft stock, I guess, because they actually now had like a mediocre record. But yeah, Teddy Bridgewater is just one of those guys who just unfortunately is now a little bit past his prime. He's a little bit older. He can do all the right things, but he's no longer even as competitive as some of the talented rookies that we're seeing just in this draft class alone. So he's one of those guys that I think will get better, but for now he will be a solid backup somewhere.
And I think you mentioned another team that could be interested in possibly as a starting quarterback, the Chicago Bears. I don't think no one views Andy Dalton as a long-term solution in Chicago. Maybe Teddy Bridgewater can come in, provide some stability. Who knows, right? It really stinks for Teddy Bridgewater because he's going to get replaced by a guy who's probably not even a better quarterback than he is.
Yeah, and again, I really hope nothing but the best for Teddy Bridgewater. I hope he goes somewhere where he can become better quarterback and eventually be a starter somewhere. I don't think Chicago will be it, though. I think one of the big reasons Andy Dalton even agreed to go there was because he felt like he was going to be the starter there from day one. In fact, I think it was like a Bleacher Report or something that they quote him saying like he planned on being the starter throughout the entire season. So I think Chicago's just too messy of a place. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater would even want to go there. So But again, just best of luck to Teddy Bridgewater. I hope he goes somewhere where he can develop once again and become that great comeback quarterback that we've seen.
Yeah, and just one more note before we move on here. The Carolina Panthers have granted him permission to seek a trade. So he's going to be allowed to talk to whatever team contacts him. His agent can contact other teams. They're going to work together to find Teddy. Hopefully, Teddy can land in the spot that he wants to land in. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Stampede and watching the Stampede on YouTube. No matter what platform you're listening, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, please provide us feedback. All feedback is appreciated. We want to know how we're doing here at the Stampede. So please give us feedback, and yeah, we'll be sure to listen and respond as the best we can. Comment down below how we're doing, all that good stuff. You guys know the drill. Thank you so much for listening to the Stampede, and we'll see you next time.